Yo, what's up, family? I just wanted to get on here. I'm learning so much. I got a new book that I'm reading called uh, Permission to Feel. I'm only in chapter 3, but as I learn so much, it just reminds me of things that I've learned over time. And so I wanted to share with people not only my process, but hopefully, again, vulnerability is a way forward. So it's a way that you can process. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 19, as a face is reflected in water, so the heart reflects the real person. You know that Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks in Matthew chapter 12. You know that Jeremiah chapter 17 says, the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked above all things. Who can know it or who can understand it? And so we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, but we often as believers are trying to separate that from the spirit of God. And so I just want to remind you, you need to have your emotional intelligence connected to your spiritual discernment. If you don't, we will always think something about ourselves that isn't even true. What I've learned is that our thought life is what controls our emotions. Our emotions are really the signals, the data, the information that come from our thoughts. It's really what we, how we begin to process our thoughts, and then those display as a feeling. Let me give you an example. When you turned on this video, even when you saw the thumbnail, you saw me in this Bama hat. Now, Bama won last night, 45 to I think, or 52 to 35, or whatever the score was. I'm not even a Bama fan. I generally don't wear hats. If you know me, you thought that when you saw the thumbnail, and you actually had a thought. That thought brought about an emotion. And what that emotion was for each one of us is different. Like when I told my wife I'm doing this in a Bama hat, my wife experienced an emotion, and then the feeling that displayed on her face was one of disgust. And disgust is probably the emotion that she experienced, but what appeared on her face was somewhat of an embarrassment. Well, why? Well, because she went to Ole Miss in the SEC. And so, but my friend Aaron Grease Anderson, my friend Kent Ballard, who gave me the hat, they likely will see this and be excited. There will be a joy that comes with them seeing me in a Bama hat. But for the rest of you who know me, who know I never wear hats, and I don't really watch college football except for when Ty Blackledge is doing stuff, um, you had thoughts, and those thoughts led to emotions. Again, having language to them is really important, and a lot of us don't have language. This is a sheet. I don't even remember where I found this, but it shows the 5 core emotions. It gives language for all of the emotions at the high level, mid level, and low level of how you experience the emotion. The 5 core emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, shame, or disgust, whichever one you want to use there, just like in the movie Inside Out. And there are people who argue there are more. Nobody really argues that there's less that I have seen or know about. But I do know this, that when I got this sheet, it helped unlock language and vocabulary. Think about it. As you grow up, if you don't have the language to describe something, it's really hard to explain yourself. It's really hard to make sense of other people. It's really hard to make sense of your life. And emotions is no different. And so a lot of times I hear people say, I was so mad. Well, mad signifies one of the highest categories of the anger emotion. But what I'm understanding is a lot of times when people say they were mad, it's kind of like when people cuss sometimes, when they just don't have another word. And so that's the word that they use. What I'm learning is that our emotions tell us things. Our emotions are data. Shout out to Raffinay Wilson, who has helped me understand that and actually gave me this sheet that I wrote this down. And again, this is recorded, so you can watch it as many times as you want. You can write this down because it helped me understand a lot. But I just want you to understand that emotion is to feeling as sense is to touch. A feeling is the autonomic response to an emotion and is displayed on the surface of the body. Emotions are energy in motion. They are the objective inward reality that moves us outward, and feelings are the outward subjective reality on display. So one of the ways you can think about it is the emotions are the signals that come into the television. What displays on the television is our feelings. And so, as I write here, as is written here, emotions are the cable box, feelings are display on the television screen of life. So, emotions are positive generally in nature, in that God gave us emotions as data to serve the purpose of providing energy to act on perceptions of our environment. They derive from our thoughts and therefore stem from what we experience in real time or what we remember. Emotional maturity is the ability to manage emotions, much like managing a cable network or a dispatch center. That helped me a ton in thinking through the emotions. So I'm just gonna go over the five core real quick. What the emotion is, what the purpose is, what the energy is, and what the goal is, because this was huge for me. It was helpful for me to remember. So the emotion anger has the purpose of signaling an injustice to one's sense of value, ability to communicate oneself honestly and fully. The energy that moves us outward is an energy of protection or respect, and the goal is to make things right, just, or fair. The emotion fear signals that danger, threats, or violation has occurred in regard to our basic needs. It's the energy to fight or to fly away, with the major goal to be safe and secure. Sadness signals a loss or a disconnect. It provides the energy moving outward to grieve and or to calculate risks. It helps us, or the goal is to heal or to manage loss. Then disgust slash shame, whichever one you want to use there, it signals limitation or violation of basic human laws, rules, values, or beliefs. It's the energy to set boundaries so that we can manage our suffering or our discomfort. Lastly, joy signals achievement, a state of peace and success. It's the energy to thrive, bloom, and self express with the ultimate goal to celebrate. So, then in this book, as Dr. Marc Brackett talks about how to manage emotions and how to be emotionally intelligent, he has a acronym called RULER, where he says you first need to recognize your emotions, understand them, label them, then you can express them, and then you can learn to regulate them. And um, everything that I learn, I seek to comprehend it, and I love that rule. I think it's dope. Um, the way that I believe God gave it to me that helps me understand a little bit more is to first name it, which is just like he said, recognize it. You got to name it. You got to say, I'm experiencing emotion here. What am I experiencing? But then you have to frame it. You have to identify the source of the emotion. You got to ask, where did this come from? Why am I experiencing this energy? And what is this energy moving me to do? So you name it, then you frame it. The third thing you need to do once you name it and frame it, which is no different than recognize and understand, is you have to tame it. A part of taming it really is um, like like naming it and framing it. Like half of framing it is understanding it. The other half of understanding it is in that taming it part. It's going, okay, I need to identify the message of this emotion by asking, what's the goal of this energy? What is this energy saying? What is it telling me to do? What am I being moved to do? What am I being moved to address? You need to process the emotion and the feelings associated therewith by asking, is the source of the emotion still present? Is the message that I'm receiving accurate? Do I need to act on the situation, the thoughts, or the emotions? What action is necessary? What are my options to addressing the situation appropriately? So I just posted asking things like, hey, what can I control? What can I change? What is mine to own? That's how we begin to tame these emotions. And when I say tame, I don't mean, hey, they're wild animals that need to be. No, what I mean by tame the emotion is domesticate it. Allow it to be used for your good and for the good of others. If we think in that framework, naming the emotion, that is recognizing that it's there, framing the emotion, that is really giving it its own identification, asking where does this come from, asking why am I experiencing this energy and what is it telling me to do, then and only then can we really tame it. That's a part of what he calls regulating. But then once we have named it and framed it and tamed it, then we can claim it. We can express the emotion appropriately. We can address the situation with the proper energy and strategic goals of those emotions in mind, which will help us and the people with which we are in relationship or with which we are in conversation. So as I think about it, when you hear somebody say, I was mad, well, again, according to this chart, that's the highest level. So oftentimes our energy is misconstrued because we really were annoyed, which is a low level, or we were bothered, or we were irritated, or we were miffed or perturbed, we were resistant, we were touchy, we were upset or uptight, but we say, I was mad. Yet sometimes we feel disrespected and there's a real energy pushing us, but we'll say, I was annoyed. And so, again, not that everybody knows the chart, but there needs to be a connection in our naming and framing and taming, if you like ruler, and the recognition, the understanding and the labeling. There has to be an understanding in that realm of how much energy is coming forward in these emotions so that when you display them, when you claim them, when you express them, they're able to be expressed in a way that they are not misconstrued. And so there are tons of us who, because of what we see displayed on the outside, will go, well, you were angry with me. When in actuality, a person was sad, heartbroken, discouraged, disinterested, agonized, blue, bored, right? There are times where so somebody once said, I know I interrupted myself, but follow me. Somebody once well said, if your only tool is a hammer, every problem will look like a nail. If the only real words for emotional expression, feelings that you have in your vocabulary are like mad, angry, upset, there's a lot more range of emotion. And many of us think more in terms of anger than we do shame or fear or these other things. Happiness, sadness. You know, when somebody's crying, that doesn't mean they're sad. That could be tears of joy, right? If somebody's laughing, that doesn't mean that they're happy or experiencing joy. It could be that they're nervous, which is in the fear category. So, what we need to be masters of, what we need to grow in, what I need to grow in is being an emotion scientist. What am I experiencing, not only myself, but what is this person across from me that I'm having a conversation with experiencing? And sometimes they're experiencing fear and shame and sadness, but from what we're used to and experience, they look angry. We have to be expert listeners. As my counselor said, you know, Timotheus, whenever somebody wants to be heard, they can tell you what they do to hear. I raise my voice, you know, I clap, I get real quiet, I do whatever. But the question really is, what do you do? Oh, I'm sorry. People can tell you what they need to do to be heard. But the question really is, what do you do when you really want to hear? When you really want to understand somebody? How do you approach that conversation? Leaning forward, active listening, eye contact, mouth closed, ears open. Is that how you like when you really want to understand somebody, when you really want to hear, when you really want to get the message? What do you do? We live in a country that a lot of people want to be heard. A lot of people want their perspective understood. But as you've probably heard me say many a time, we need to learn to seek to understand before we seek to be understood. I hope that this was an encouragement to you. I really do hope it blesses you. I hope that you weren't too distracted by the Bama hat. Again, it was a part of the example of the experience of you having some emotion, and it probably displayed on your face or in your body language, even when you saw it. You might have saw the thumbnail and went, "Is Pope a Bama fan?" Or, which again, the look there shows some level of confusion, and that's not a bad thing, right? It's understanding that you're experiencing something, some energy, and then that energy, the real goal is to figure out what is going on, right? So um, I think if we begin to understand that emotions have a purpose and they have an energy and they have a goal, we'll we'll be able to manage not only our emotions, but we'll be able to help others manage theirs. Have a wonderful day. Love you. Peace.